One introduction. ROSEP view: the United States government was on track in the Biden administration to reduce the prices for both clean energy heat pumps and clean energy electric cars. Trump tariffs are expected to upset those plans to prevent future air pollution and prevent climate change. The United States government should, instead of certifying wood stoves as safe when they are not safe, go forward with regulations that ban wood stove use and direct government money for use of forest refuse only. For home building and furniture building, for just a few examples of use of forest products for non-burning uses, it is well known from scientific and medical research that wood burning is a substantial source of PM 2.5 emissions, yet the wood burning industry uses the scientifically debunked theory named carbon neutrality of wood burning to argue that wood burning replacing coal burning in industry, and in a trickle-down argument that wood burning should continue for home heating should continue. Presumably because it is called renewable, wood may be renewable in the sense that a tree can be planted in the place of a cut-down burned tree, but it takes centuries or decades for the newly planted tree to attain the stature of the cut-down burned tree. During those centuries or decades, photosynthesis, which converts CO2 to oxygen and so sequesters some carbon, will not take place at the same rate as photosynthesis was performed previously, and wood burning emits both CO2 and PM 2.5, and PM 2.5 is not absorbed by trees, so PM 2.5 is not diminished by planting a tree in the place of a cut-down and burned tree. In fact, a living tree closes its pores against the presence of PM 2.5 from nearby wood burning, just as humans hold their breath in the presence of PM 2.5 from nearby wood burning. And when a tree closes its pores, the level of photosynthesis that absorbs CO2 pollution goes down. Wood burning emits 90% PM 2.5 particulate matter of 2.5 micrometer size, the perfect size to infiltrate the human lungs, setting off a cascade of human health problems and early deaths. Contrary to many beliefs, wood burning emits 2.8 times the PM 2.5 as the fossil fuel coal burning, and wood burning emits 450 times the PM 2.5 as the fossil fuel natural gas burning. Replacing coal burning with wood burning creates more air pollution in the form of CO2 and PM 2.5 than coal burning. This emission data comes from testing the cleanest burning wood stove in the United Kingdom, the Eco-Design Wood Stove, and International Convention does not count the emissions from wood burning. The emissions from wood burning are erased from all countries around the world when calculating if each country has met its climate goals. This non-counting or erasure of wood burning emissions data from climate goals does not mean wood burning emissions do not exist. ROSEP view: purple air PM 2.5 monitors hanging from the eaves of the house of a near neighbor should be used to measure the level of PM 2.5 in the air hyperlocally in the yards of near neighbors of indoor residential wood burners. If PM 2.5 levels exceed World Health Organization standards of 5 micrograms per cubic meter annually, then that evidence of air pollution from wood burning should lead to the shutdown of that indoor residential wood burning appliance, one appliance at a time if necessary.
Hi, my name is Lily. Andrew gave you the intro to Residents Against Wood Smoke Emission Particulates and their concern for air pollution from indoor residential wood burning. Residents Against Wood Smoke Emission Particulates, or ROSEP, would like every near neighbor of an indoor residential wood burner whose wood smoke enters their yards and sickens the near neighbors to have a purple air PM 2.5 monitor hanging from the eaves of their home to measure the level of PM 2.5 entering their yards. That measurement of air pollution should be used as evidence of unnecessary air pollution, and each indoor residential wood burner should be shut down based on that evidence, one indoor residential wood burner at a time if necessary. The presentation by Andrew ended at 2 minutes 5 seconds. The same presentation by Emma starts at 2 minutes 3 seconds before the end of this podcast. So I am Lily, your timekeeper, and you can start the next podcast at 2 minutes 5 seconds in if you would not like to see the presentation by Andrew a second time. This presentation by me, Lily, ends at 5 minutes in. What you will see in the main content of this ROSEP podcast will be news about air pollution from indoor residential wood burning, and how that air pollution is being combated by ordinary people just like you who are unfortunately near neighbors of indoor residential wood burners at this time. There will also be news about unnecessary and highly polluting use of wood as fuel in industrial wood burners and preventable air pollution from wood burning wildfires. There will also be news about air pollution from PM 2.5 from gas-powered cars. There will also be news about airborne diseases which are also preventable with vaccines such as COVID-19 and measles and whooping cough, to name just a few. In 2025, Residents Against Wood Smoke Emission Particulates is also concerned with combating the Trump destruction of government funding for programs which protect human health through the Department of Health and Human Services, and Trump destruction of programs which fund the science and medical research plan to protect human health from preventable illnesses. Protecting human health is a patriotic act, and our defense against enemies is weakened if we are not as healthy as we can be. Heat pump rebates are now offered by the federal government, distributed through the eligible United States, are available in 2025, and are the best, cleanest, and now cheapest alternative to indoor residential wood burning if that burning is actually done to purportedly save money. Wind and solar as sources of the electricity that powers heat pumps and electric cars is also cheaper than burning wood. The adverse health effects that are caused by indoor residential wood burning also come at a cost to near neighbors, both in shortening and ending their lives, and in actual hospital, clinic, and funeral costs. Instead of being compensated monetarily, near neighbors should instead be able to achieve immediate relief by stopping indoor residential wood burning in their hyper-localized neighborhoods, which relief readings from purple air PM 2.5 monitors used as evidence of air pollution will help them achieve. Welcome to news about hopeful scientific and medical achievements that will also help us achieve the goal of clean air to breathe.
Webisode 57DHXXD September 5, 2005 They are electing the cats, and Little Problems a detective game. In Webisode 57DHXXD 1 to 5 KFF Health Newsletter 7, They are electing the cats. 8 Little Problems a cute detective game with no violence or victims 9 headlines main content. 1 to 6 KFF Health Newsletter excerpts edited by ROSEP residents against wood smoke emission particulates KFF Health News Friday, September 5, 2025 In this edition KFF Health News Original Stories 1 RFK Jr. faces Senate Finance Committee, a live discussion RFK Jr. grilled over CDC, shake-up, vaccine confusion abortion pill access, 2 vaccines Massachusetts New York break, with FDA, on COVID vaccine limitations, 3 healthcare costs, HHS broadens catastrophic. Coverage eligibility on ACA exchange for Trump administration to distribute the new HIV meds from Gilead to millions 5 editorials and opinions viewpoints Florida will endanger kids by ending school vaccine mandates. Susan Menares shares her side 6 from KFF Health News KFF Health News Original Stories 1 RFK Jr. faces Senate Finance Committee, a live discussion Stephanie Armour Julie Rovner and Arthur Allen of KFF Health News and Josh Michaud of KFF discuss the biggest takeaways from RFK Jr. hearing before the Senate Finance Committee September 4th, 2025 Here is the September 5th, 2025 Health Policy Haiku in nonprofit hospitals, a growing pay gap divides CEOs from the average worker Timothy Kelly. If you have a health policy haiku to share, please contact us and let us know if we can include your name. Haikus follow the format of 5 then 7 then 5 syllables. We give extra brownie points if you link back to an original story. Opinions expressed in haikus and cartoons are solely from the author and do not reflect the opinions of KFF Health News or KFF Summaries of the News. 1A RFK Jr. grilled over CDC shake-up, vaccine confusion abortion pill access. HHS Secretary RFK Jr. struck a defiant tone as Senators Democrat and Republican pressed him for answers about the direction he is taking the department. If we are going to make America healthy again, we cannot allow public health to be undermined, said John Barrasso, Republican of Wyoming. RFK Jr. indicated more upheaval is to come, plus looks at claims made during the hearing. Roll call. RFK Jr. defends CDC shakeup, accusing medical experts of lies. Health and Human Services Secretary RFK Jr. was unrepentant Thursday about his shakeup of the American Public Health Agency and overhaul of federal vaccine policy, accusing a departed director and top medical organizations of lying. Hellman and Cohen September 4th, 2025 1B Politico. RFK Jr. says firing of the CDC director is just the start. Health Secretary RFK Jr. has no plans to try to lower the temperature around the upheaval he has caused at his department. We are the sickest country in the world. That is why we have to fire people at the CDC. They did not do their job. RFK Jr. said, I need to fire some of those people to make sure this does not happen again. Levine September 4th, 2025 1C The Guardian. RFK Jr. hints access to key abortion drug could be cut back. The U.S. Health Secretary RFK Jr. has suggested that Biden-era regulations expanding access to abortion pills could be rolled back because the Biden administration had twisted the data behind the pills. RFK Jr. made the remark more than an hour into a tense interrogation by members of the U.S. Senate Judiciary Committee over his chaotic tenure at the health department, which has been marked by thousands of layoffs and the promotion of leaders with little background in public health and medicine. Sherman September 4th, 2025 1D The Hill Senate Democrats press RFK Jr. to step down as HHS Secretary. Almost every Democratic member of the Senate Finance Committee called on RFK Jr. to step down as Secretary of the Department of Health and Human Services following a major shakeup at the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention CDC. 11 of the 12 Democratic senators on the committee issued a statement Thursday demanding his resignation shortly before RFK Jr. was scheduled to testify before the committee about recent federal vaccine policy changes, as well as the firing and resignations of several top CDC officials. O'Connell Domenech September 4th, 2025 1 NBC News GOP Senator Bill Cassidy pits RFK Jr. against Trump on vaccines. Senator Bill Cassidy, Republican of Louisiana, grilled Health and Human Services Secretary RFK Jr. on his skepticism of vaccines Thursday, arguing that his actions fly in the face of one of the Trump biggest achievements. Kapoor Leach and Kariety September 4th, 2025 1F Politico. Trump backs RFK Jr. following tense Senate hearing. President Donald Trump said Thursday that he did not watch Health Secretary RFK Jr. at times tense testimony in Congress, but is confident he means very well. The secretary faced withering criticism from Democrats and mild rebuke from a handful of Republicans who worried that his stance on vaccines threatens the safety of Americans. Johansson September 4th, 2025 1G More from the hearing. MedPage Today. RFK Jr. botches basic facts at Senate hearing. HHS Secretary RFK Jr. repeatedly cited inaccurate numbers and gave evasive responses to simple queries from lawmakers during a Senate hearing on Thursday, with one frustrated senator casting the cabinet head as ignorant. Firth September 4th, 2025 1H APA look at false claims made by RFK Jr. during a Senate hearing on Maha. U.S. Health Secretary RFK Jr. made myriad false and misleading claims on Thursday as he fielded questions examining his 7-month tenure leading the health agencies of America. At a contentious 3-hour hearing, RFK Jr. ignored government data, twisted legislation, and pointed to unsubstantiated treatments while addressing topics such as COVID-19 vaccines, rural hospitals, and school shootings. Golden September 4th, 2025 1I Becker Hospital review. Rural hospitals painted as bright spot in tense RFK Jr. Senate hearing. 3 takeaways. HHS Secretary RFK Jr. appeared before the Senate Finance Committee on September 4th to explain his Make America Healthy Again Maha agenda and defend sweeping changes to the CDC vaccine policy and other federal health programs. Here are 3 of the central takeaways from the nearly 3-hour hearing. 1. The RFK Jr. testimony drew bipartisan criticism for his position on vaccines. Senator Bill Cassidy, MD, Republican of Louisiana, had secured a commitment from RFK Jr. during his February confirmation that he would not limit American access to vaccines, which is a commitment the senator says RFK Jr. has broken gamble and conned in September 4, 2025. 1J, KFF Health News. RFK Jr. faces Senate Finance Committee, a live discussion. Health and Human Services Secretary. The RFK Jr. testimony before the Senate Finance Committee follows the ouster last week of the Director of the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, Susan Menares. At least 4 other senior CDC officials resigned in protest September 4, 2025. 1K on autism and Maha the Hill. CNN host Senator debate vaccine autism claims. CNN host Casey Hunt and Senator Markwayne Mullin, Republican of Oklahoma, got into a heated debate over the RFK Jr. stances on vaccines, autism, and several other issues that the Health and Human Services Secretary defended during a congressional hearing Thursday. Mastrangelo, September 4, 2025. 1L. CNN. RFK Jr. said there will be autism answers this month with public health agencies in upheaval. Autism advocates are alarmed. U.S. Health and Human Services Secretary RFK Jr. pledged in April that there would be answers on the causes of autism this month. Since then, he has ousted public health officials, publicly rebuked studies showing no link between vaccines and autism, and said interventions are almost certainly responsible for causing rising autism rates. Owermole, September 4, 2025. 1M. Vox Scoop. RFK Jr. and Trump silenced a groundbreaking report on cancer and alcohol. Scientists provided the Trump administration with evidence of harm from alcohol. Here is why you still have not seen this new study. Scott, September 4, 2025. 2 vaccines. 2. A Massachusetts-New York break with FDA on COVID vaccine limitations. While Massachusetts will mandate insurance coverage for state-recommended shots, New York plans to give pharmacists the authority to offer vaccines to anyone over 3 without a prescription. Plus, Hawaii joins the West Coast Health Alliance. Georgia pumps the brakes on COVID shots, and more. 2. B. The Boston Globe. Massachusetts insurers will cover costs of state-recommended vaccines. Governor says Massachusetts became the first state in the country Thursday to require insurers to cover the cost of COVID shots and other inoculations recommended by state health officials in another move to counter the Trump efforts to undo the long national consensus on vaccines. The rift was prompted by new federal limitations on who should receive COVID vaccines under Health Secretary RFK Jr. that have created confusion among consumers, pharmacies, and physicians, and made it difficult for even those with demonstrated need to get booster shots. Laughlin and Schmeisser, September 4, 2025. 2. See the New York Times. Hochul to sign order to get around U.S. limits on COVID vaccine in an effort to ensure more New Yorkers can get the latest COVID vaccines. Gov. Kathy Hochul is planning to sign an executive order that would authorize pharmacists to provide the shot to almost anyone who wants it. The office of the governor said Thursday the executive order is intended to undo limits that the federal government has imposed. Last week, the Food and Drug Administration approved updated versions of the COVID vaccine, but authorized them only for people 65 and older or for younger people who haven't underlying medical condition that makes COVID-19 more dangerous. Children remain eligible if a medical provider is consulted. Goldstein, September 4, 2025. 2D. The Hill. Hawaii joining West Coast Vaccine Alliance. Hawaii is joining a coalition of West Coast Democratic-led states, forming a new public health alliance in opposition to Health and Human Services HHS Secretary RFK Jr. California, Oregon, and Washington State announced the alliance Wednesday, which officials say will provide evidence-based immunization guidance rooted in safety, efficacy, and transparency to ensure residents receive credible information free from political interference, according to a statement from California Gov. Gavin Newsom. D. O'Connell Domenech, September 4, 2025. 2. Atlanta Journal-Constitution. Georgia halts giving COVID-19 booster vaccines amid HHS uncertainty. Big pharmacies and public health clinics in Georgia are not yet giving the 2025 COVID-19 booster shots, or are putting new restrictions in place amid vaccine uncertainty. Under Department of Health and Human Services Secretary RFK Jr. Doctors hope the confusion will be resolved in a couple of weeks when a federal committee appointed by RFK Jr. is scheduled to decide on whether to recommend the shot. It is not certain how the committee will vote. Hart, September 4, 2025. 2F. The Texas Tribune. Texas vaccine exemption form is now downloadable. Texas parents will no longer have to wait weeks for a vaccine exemption form to be mailed to them if they want their children opted out of state-required immunizations to attend school. This week, the state health agency quietly unveiled the new downloadable vaccine exemption form, the result of House Bill 1586 of State Representative Lacey Hull, which went into effect on Monday. Along with the form, the Texas Department of State Health Services also published a document listing the benefits and risks of immunization. Langford, September 4, 2025. 2G. The 19 Florida officials want to eliminate school vaccine mandates. It is not that simple. Republican officials in Florida announced this week that they want to eliminate all vaccine mandates for schools. It is not that simple. It will require action from state lawmakers, but the announcement raises several questions about the future spread of infectious diseases and the disproportionate impact on infants, children, the elderly, and immunocompromised people in the state and country. Rodriguez and Niddle, September 4, 2025. 2H. The Hill. Florida is going to become a hotbed of transmission. Former Biden COVID advisor Michael Osterholm, a former Biden administration advisor on COVID-19, said Wednesday that Florida is going to become a hotbed of transmission after Sunshine State officials announced they will seek to make the state the first in the U.S. to officially remove school vaccine mandates. I would have to tell you, as a parent or a grandparent, I would not want my kids to go into Florida in the years ahead to go to Walt Disney World or any place like that, because Florida is going to become a hotbed of transmission by eliminating this particular mandate, and I think unfortunately timely for that to be true, Osterholm told CNN anchor Anderson Cooper on his show Suitor, September 4, 2025. 3. In other vaccine developments. 3A. The New York Times Health Department plans vaccine poll run by firm of Trump ally. The Department of Health and Human Services is preparing to issue a no-bid contract for a firm run by an ally of President Trump to poll Americans on their perspectives around vaccines. The move follows a wide-reaching effort by the Health Secretary RFK Jr. to dismantle parts of the American health infrastructure that develop and make recommendations for the use of vaccines. A day before the contract proposal was posted last week, RFK Jr. moved to fire the director of the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention because of disagreements over his vaccine policies. The polling firm HarrisX is part of STAG, while a marketing company led by Mark Penn, a former political advisor to Bill and Hillary Clinton, who has now become a vocal supporter of Trump-Cameron. September 4, 2025, 3B, Stat NIH whistleblower on vaccines says the story needed to be told. Whistleblower complaints by two former top National Institutes of Health officials offer their inside accounts of the Trump targeting of vaccine science at the largest funder of biomedical research in the world, and the reach of Matthew Memley, the CDC deputy director, in enacting those policies. Oza and Molteni, September 4, 2025. For healthcare costs, for AHHS broadens catastrophic coverage eligibility on ACA exchange starting NOV. First, Affordable Care Act participants who do not qualify for the advanced subsidies or cost-sharing reductions may apply for a hardship exemption. In other news, ACA insurers might need to revise 2026 prices. Companies and their employees are looking at higher healthcare costs and more. For B Fierce Healthcare, Trump administration expands access to ACA catastrophic plans. The Trump administration unveiled plans to expand access to catastrophic plans on the Affordable Care Act ACA exchanges as the expiry of enhanced premium tax credits looms. The Department of Health and Human Services HHS said Thursday that consumers who do not qualify for the advanced subsidies or cost-sharing reductions can apply for a hardship exemption beginning NOV. First, the first day of open enrollment for the marketplace's Mine September 4, 2025. For See Modern Healthcare ACA enrollment appeal forces insurers to retool prices for 2026. A federal court ruling could drive many exchange insurers to scrap their plans for 2026 again. Perhaps ironically, the latest complication facing health insurance exchange carriers is connected to a legal victory against the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services regulation that likely would suppress exchange membership. Tepper. September 4, 2025. 4D, the New York Times healthcare costs for workers begin to climb. Employees of large and small companies are likely to face higher healthcare costs with increases in premiums, bigger deductibles, or co-pays, and will possibly lose some benefits next year, according to a large survey of companies nationwide that was released on Thursday. The survey of 1,700 companies conducted by Mercer, a benefits consultant, indicated that employers are anticipating the sharpest increases in medical costs in about 15 years. Higher drug costs, rising hospital prices, and greater demand for care are all contributing factors, experts said. Abelson, September 4, 2025. 5 on Medicaid cuts and the uninsured. 5 A Politico plans for second GOP megabill face growing skepticism. Republican hopes of pursuing a second major domestic policy package this year are running into major roadblocks as they confront a lack of consensus and a grand unifying goal, like the extension of sweeping tax cuts that held the last megabill together. The bearish view already prevalent inside the Senate GOP is now taking hold among some members of the leadership circle of Speaker Mike Johnson after he was touting the possibility of a fresh party line bill as he worked to push the first package across the line in July. Hill and Carney, September 5, 2025. 5 B AP New Mexico governor urges lawmakers to protect safety net programs. The governor of New Mexico is calling on state lawmakers to shore up safety net programs in response to federal spending cuts enacted by President Donald Trump in an announcement Thursday that highlighted reduced federal support for Medicaid and food assistance programs. More than 40% of New Mexico residents are enrolled in Medicaid health care for people living in poverty or on the cusp, among the highest rates in the nation. Lee, September 5, 2025. 5 See KFF Health News. He built the Medicaid work requirement system in Michigan. Now he is warning other states. It was March 2020 and Robert Gordon was about to kick some 80,000 people off health insurance. As the Michigan state health director, he had spent the past year and some $30 million in state tax dollars trying to avoid that very thing. Gordon was a Democrat, a veteran of the Obama administration, and he did not want people to lose the Medicaid coverage they had recently gained through the Affordable Care Act. Wells, September 5, 2025. 5D, the Cleveland Plain Dealer MetroHealth considers cutting charity care for some uninsured patients in an effort to rein in spiraling spending on charity care. MetroHealth system is considering reducing free or discounted bills for some uninsured patients. The proposed reductions would hit, as an example, individuals making $39,000 to $63,000 annually, or a 4-person family making $80,000 to $128,000 annually. Washington, September 5, 2025. Headlines: The New York Times, September 5, 2025. 6 Republican opinion: Why I am not a liberal. David Brooks, The New York Times. Why I am not a liberal. Excerpts edited by Rozep. Residents against wood smoke emission particulates. The New York Times, September 5, 2025. A dollar bill cut in pieces and pinned to a wall. Last May, a study came out suggesting that merely giving people money does not do much to lift them out of poverty. Families with at least one child received $333 a month. They had more money to spend, which is a good thing, but the children fared no better than similar children who did not get the cash. They were not more likely to develop language skills or demonstrate cognitive development. A different study published last year gave families $500 a month for 2 years and found no big effects. A study that gave $1,000 a month did not produce better health, career, education, or sleep outcomes, or even more time with their children. People who rely on government to solve problems will tend to overemphasize the power of money because that is the thing government most easily controls. This materialistic bent leads to all sorts of bad judgments. For example, Joe Biden and his team had one job: to make sure Donald Trump never set foot in the White House again. They tried to accomplish that the only way they knew how. Throw money at the problem. The vast bulk of the new Biden spending went to red states to employ workers without college degrees. Politically, the project was a complete failure. Populism is not primarily economic. It is about respect, values, national identity, and many other things. All that spending did not win anybody over. Today, most of our problems are moral, relational, and spiritual more than they are economic. There is the crisis of disconnection, the collapse of social trust, the loss of faith in institutions, the destruction of moral norms. In the White House, the rise of a moral gangsterism around the world. I have been driven away from the right over the past decade, but I cannot join the left because I just do not think that tradition of thought grasps reality in all its fullness. I wish both right and left could embrace the more complex truth that the neocon Democrat Daniel Patrick Moynihan expressed in his famous maxim. The central conservative truth is that it is culture, not politics, that determines the success of a society. The central liberal truth is that politics can change culture and save it from itself. If you can find some lefties who are willing to spend money fighting poverty, but also willing to promote the traditional values and practices that enable people to rise, you can sign me up for the revolution. Consumers food preparation. The Ninja Slushie makes restaurant-worthy slushies in under an hour. Reviews by Wirecutter. Consumers lottery winners. The luckiest gas station in America. The New York Times. Consumers medicine and science. The doctors are real, but the sales pitches are frauds. The New York Times. Consumers medicine and science. What is man flu? And can men really get it? The New York Times. Consumers medicine and science. Why you should add weights to your stretching routine. The New York Times. Media. Stephen Colbert sounds the alarm on death by Florida. The New York Times. Medicine and science. Partial heart transplants show promise. The New York Times. Medicine and science. Rozep view repeated blows to the head. From the article headline, something is wrong with my brain. A descent of a police officer. The New York Times. Elon Musk could become first trillionaire under new Tesla pay package. The New York Times. New York City arts. The downtown ventriloquist. The New York Times. New York City mayoral race donors push Mamdani to maximum fundraising cap in mayoral race. The New York Times. New York City mayoral race donations to Mamdani surged after the primary, while funding for Cuomo lagged. The New York Times. Republicans Koch family agrees to purchase 10% stake in New York Giants. Source The Athletic. RFK Jr. Medicine and Science. 5 takeaways from RFK Jr. Senate hearing. The New York Times. RFK Jr. Medicine and Science opinion. RFK Jr. is breaking what actually keeps America healthy. The New York Times. RFK Jr. Medicine and Science senators unleash on RFK Jr. The New York Times. Trump actions. A failed top secret mission in North Korea and a government shutdown deadline. The New York Times. Trump actions. Adams considers dropping out of race after secret meeting in Florida. The New York Times. Trump actions. August jobs report. Live updates. The New York Times. Trump actions. Donald Trump to attend U.S. Open final of men in first appearance since 2015. Source The Athletic. Trump actions. How a top secret SEAL Team 6 mission into North Korea fell apart. The New York Times. Trump actions. Is jobs data still reliable? Why economists say yes. The New York Times. Trump actions. Justice Amy Coney Barrett argues her own case in the court case in new book. The New York Times. Trump actions. Medicine and science. Medicare will require prior approval for certain procedures. The New York Times. Trump actions. Melania Trump has a warning for humanity. The robots are here. The New York Times. Trump actions. Members of Congress grasped for a stopgap deal to avert a shutdown. The New York Times. Trump actions. Opinion. Chicago could be a powder keg. The New York Times. Trump actions. Opinion. China, Russia, Iran, and North Korea sense their moment. The New York Times. Trump actions. Opinion. Trump is scrubbing slavery from our historical sites. The New York Times. Trump actions. Opinion. The Trump lonely trade crusade. Rozep interjection with no followers on the tariff trail. The New York Times. Trump actions. President of Northwestern, a school attacked by the GOP, will resign. The New York Times. Trump actions. The visit of a Democratic senator to spy agency was canceled after Laura Loomer complained. The New York Times. Trump actions. She decides who is famous enough for free U.S. Open tickets. The New York Times. Trump actions. Rozep view climate change mitigation reversals. From the article headline, the Trump administration wants to switch off climate satellites. The New York Times. Trump actions. Consumers of flights. Trump administration drops Biden plan for flight delay compensation. The New York Times. Trump actions. Rozep view European security ended. From the article headline, Trump administration to end security programs protecting European allies from Russia. The New York Times. Trump actions. Trump asks Supreme Court to allow removal of FTC commissioner. The New York Times. Trump actions. Trump is exploring ways to take over the September 11th Memorial and Museum. The New York Times. Trump actions. Trump to sign order renaming the Defense Department as the Department of War. The New York Times. Trump actions. Trump will rename the Defense Department the Department of War. What to know? The New York Times. United Kingdom. Angela Rayner, UK Deputy Prime Minister, resigns after underpaying tax. The New York Times. Europe. Trump actions. With Trump and Ukraine, European leaders are playing a long game. The New York Times. Portugal mass transport questions focus on cable in Lisbon. Funicular crash. The New York Times. France. French winemaker gets prison for selling fake champagne. The New York Times. Ukraine. Western troops in Ukraine before a peace deal would be targets Putin, says the New York Times. Afghanistan. Rozep view deadly sexism. From the article headline, after Afghanistan earthquake, women tell of being shunned by male rescuers. The New York Times. Thailand ex-premier Thaksin Shinawatra abruptly leaves country. The New York Times. Headlines. The Guardian. September 5th, 2025. 7 Massachusetts Somerville cats vie in bike path mayoral race. Media. The cat mayoral race meet 11 runners and riders in the most furious and furriest election in the U.S. Cats. The Guardian. It has been the talk of Somerville, Massachusetts this summer, with the winner announced later today. Will it be the candidate who promises free kibble or the one who speaks nomically of crime? Excerpts edited by Rozep. Residents against wood smoke emission particulates. The Guardian. September 5th, 2025. In Somerville, Massachusetts, a community bike path has in recent months become a hotly contested political constituency. A cat with a distinctive black smudge on her nose, Barry, had been sighted on the path by a number of concerned neighbors who reported her missing, but she was not actually anywhere. She should not have been. Barry is an outdoor cat who lives in the area. So her family put up a poster dubbing her the mayor of the bike path to let neighbors know not to worry. It was not long though before things got out of hand. How come Barry got to be mayor, asked other pet owners. A heated election is now underway. There have been dirty tactics. At one point the Barry campaign sign was stolen. Scandal candidates were outraged when a local vet claimed to be sponsoring the race. Voting for Somerville locals only ends on September 5th, 2025, and with 73 pets currently in the running, there is plenty of choice. Who are the runners and riders? Top 4 is chosen by Rozep. 1. The incumbent Barry, a black and white cat. Make cats outside again, reads the Barry sign. Campaigning for a second election. The current mayor is a 3-year-old black and white cat who can be found on the bike path daily. When I am not visiting my humans, the literature says she has a dedicated team of humans around her. 7-year-old chief of staff Amias and 5-year-old chief canvasser Emily, as well as campaign manager Mallory, a 39-year-old scientist. Her team claims she has improved community morale, and should she be elected will unite the community under cat supremacy. 2. The challenger orange cat, who is a 7-year-old Tom, whose owner, 42-year-old comedian Janet, says he is for democracy and pro-free and fair elections, and is also against rats. His solution to the Somerville rat problem is simple: he will eat them. 3. The fan favorite Minerva, a fluffy black cat. The simplest and most intriguing sign to have appeared along the bike path features a one-word slogan: crime. This provocative message has won 9-year-old Minerva mini supporters online, despite the fact that as an indoor cat, she has never been seen on the bike path. Her minions monitor the path for her. Say her owner's crime remains her sole policy. 4. The one who is not a cat, Picasita, a black chihuahua with a pink collar, on sitting on a patch of bright green grass outside a house. Although the majority of mayoral candidates are cats, it was not long before dogs began planting campaign signs too. If elected, 3-year-old Chihuahua Picasita, who lives along the bike path, will fight for bunnies, birds, and all the small neighbors who cannot bark for themselves. Her owner, 31-year-old data analyst Valerie, says tired of fat cat politicians. Reads her poster, I am all ears. 8. China Shanghai Games, little problems. A cute detective game with no violence or victims. Games The Guardian Shanghai, China-based developer Posh Cat Studio, focused on the satisfying thrill of solving the small mysteries of life. In this cozy crime caper, excerpts edited by Rozep. Residents against wood smoke emission particulates. The Guardian, September 2nd, 2025. As the latest generation of 18-year-olds is about to find out, starting university is an experience fraught with minor as well as major problems: oversleeping and missing lectures, forgetting where your study group is meeting, mislaying your books. A lot of your time is spent looking for things. It is these small mysteries that concern little problems. A cute detective game in which the protagonist Mary must use her sleuthing abilities to make it through each day as a new student, created by Indonesian designer Melissa, who has chosen to go by her first name. Only the idea comes from her love of detective stories, but also her wish to take violence out of the genre. I read detective comic books, novels, and manga, and have been playing detective games since I was a kid. I like horror as well, so I originally thought it would be a great idea to develop a detective game with a horror aesthetic, but after a few weeks of consuming murder and horror stories 24/7, I began to feel depressed, like the world was such a dark place. I wanted to make a story about good people who grow up and make mistakes. This game is all about that nice fuzzy feeling you get from solving small life mysteries. In short, there is no criminal activity here. Sometimes it is just about Mary trying to find a favorite earring, a friend in the crowd, or her mischievous cat. Each scene works like a hidden object puzzle game. You search a location for clues, which may be photos, notes, or schedules, and then deduce what has happened. Who broke your favorite mug? You need to check what was in it, then use information about what your housemates like to drink, and if they were around at the right time to find the culprit. Surely this is the most relatable crime ever investigated in a video game. The wholesome low-stakes feel is accentuated by an art style that draws inspiration from soft manga and anime, such as Doraemon, Chibi Maruko-chan, and Kobo-chan, as with similarly domestic titles such as Unpacking, and a little to the left there is a lot of subtle storytelling going on in the background around friendships and family, giving weight to the simple premise. Melissa started the project as a quick prototype for a Twitch game jam, but ended up spending 2 years on it, bringing 2 other staff on board, and setting up her studio. Posh Cat, it has been something of a passion project. I would love to play more cozy detective games, so I made one. She says here is to more cozy games in 2025 and beyond. Little Problems is released on PC on September 9th, 2025. Consumers fashion, the quick decline of fast fashion. ASOS and Boohoo have that post-COVID feeling. ASOS, The Guardian, crime art lies, private jets, and a missing $86 million. The Inigo Philbrick art world, swindle art. The Guardian, Democrats, medicine and science. Joe Biden has surgery to remove skin cancer lesions in latest health challenge. Joe Biden, The Guardian, Democrats, New York attorney general urges court to reinstate the Trump $500 million fraud fine. Donald Trump, The Guardian media, oh my god, they riled Donnie. The 15 biggest South Park scandals. Ranked South Park, The Guardian, medicine and science. Ultrasound helmet could treat Parkinson's non-invasively. Study shows medical research. The Guardian, music comedy. Our songs last 3 minutes, but they feel like an hour. The return of Spinal Tap, an exclusive that goes up to 11. Movies. The Guardian, music. United Kingdom, the David Bowie final project was 18th century musical. New Victoria, an Albert Museum exhibition reveals David Bowie. The Guardian, nature science. Public strongly backs aim of 30% of land and sea set aside for nature. A poll finds marine life. The Guardian, religion domination by Alice Roberts. Review a brilliant but cynical history of Christianity. History books. The Guardian, Rhode Island and Connecticut sue over Trump wind farm halt. U.S. News. The Guardian, RFK Jr. medicine and science. Florida to end vaccine mandates for children as Florida Surgeon General likens them to slavery. Florida. The Guardian, RFK Jr. medicine and science. More than 1,000 health workers urge RFK Jr. to quit over anti-vax policies. RFK Jr. The Guardian, RFK Jr. medicine and science. RFK Jr. accused of a reckless disregard for science and the truth in Senate hearing. RFK Jr. The Guardian, RFK Jr. medicine and science. Trump news at a glance. RFK Jr. made false claims in Senate testimony, says fired CDC director. Trump administration. The Guardian, Trump actions. DOJ asks Supreme Court to let Trump remove Democratic FTC commissioner. Trump administration. The Guardian, Trump actions. President of Northwestern University quits amid layoffs forced by Trump. Cuts U.S. universities. The Guardian, Trump actions. Trump expected to order rebrand of Pentagon as Department of War. Donald Trump, The Guardian. Trump actions. Trump faces criticism over to order to rebrand Pentagon as Department of War. U.S. politics live. Trump actions. The Trump a National Guard deployment cost taxpayers $120 million. Newsom says Los Angeles. The Guardian. Trump actions. The Trump radical agenda will ultimately reach a Supreme Court stacked in favor of conservatives. Donald Trump. The Guardian. Trump actions. The Trump second presidency is most dangerous period since Second World War. Mitch McConnell says. Mitch McConnell. The Guardian. Trump actions. U.S. added just 22,000 jobs in August. Continuing slowdown amid Trump tariffs. U.S. unemployment and employment data. The Guardian. Trump actions. U.S. economy only adds 22,000 jobs in August. Tesla proposes $1 trillion pay package for Musk. Business Live. Trump actions. Why the Trump firing of the U.S. jobs chief has economists worried. U.S. unemployment and employment data. The Guardian. United States history. Joseph McNeil, known for 1960 lunch counter sit in protest, dies aged 83. U.S. News. The Guardian. Canada. Climate change. Air pollution caused by wood-burning wildfires. Weather tracker. British Columbia breaks Canadian September heat record. Canada. The Guardian. Australia. Tragedy. 2 women killed after being hit by car while trying to help injured kangaroo on busy freeway. Melbourne. The Guardian. Brazil. Anatomy of a coup plot. Why Jair Bolsonaro is on trial. Jair Bolsonaro. The Guardian. United Kingdom. Angela Rayner resigns over stamp duty. Roe. Angela Rayner. The Guardian. United Kingdom. The Angela Rayner departure is an old-fashioned scalp for the right-wing press. Angela Rayner. The Guardian. United Kingdom. Trump actions. The golden rule of the Trump and the Farage free speech crusade. They are allowed to chat rubbish. You are not. Marina Hyde. The Guardian. United Kingdom. Northern Ireland. Queen of the Con convicted of fraud in Northern Ireland with help from true crime podcaster. Northern Ireland. The Guardian. Europe. Consumers. Travel. Restaurants. True flavors and honest hospitality. The favorite food of readers' experiences in Europe. Food and drink. The Guardian. Ukraine. Putin says Western troops in Ukraine would be legitimate targets as European countries pledge security support. Europe. Live. Russia. Medicine and science. Healthy living science and an army of doctors. The Putin pursuit of longevity. Vladimir Putin. The Guardian. Greece. Inequality. Farming. It is the big fat Greek farming scandal devised by the political elite and paid for by ordinary people. Alexander Clapp. The Guardian. Afghanistan earthquake. All I have left is this cloth. Afghan quake survivors still waiting for help as aid cuts hit. Taliban relief efforts. Global development. The Guardian. China and Russia and North Korea. The Guardian. View on Xi, Putin and Kim. Heed the China statement of intent, but do not take it as fact. Editorial. The Guardian. Cat's corner strategy with Tiger and Leone. Saying the quiet part out loud. Roar. Hi, I am Tiger. Our human asked us to get up from our naps and start Cat's corner strategy with Tiger and Leone. She gave us a list of internet allies, which we will post for her here.
Hi, I am Leone. It is better for your mental fitness to go to these websites than to go to bro sites for advice. Substack letters from an American. Heather Cox Richardson. Substack your local epidemiologist. The Midas Touch. The Guardian. The New York Times.
One introduction. Rosette View. The United States government was on track in the Biden administration to reduce the prices for both clean energy heat pumps and clean energy electric cars. Trump tariffs are expected to upset those plans to prevent future air pollution and prevent climate change. The United States government should, instead of certifying wood stoves as safe when they are not safe, go forward with regulations that ban wood stove use and direct government money for use of forest refuse only for home building and furniture building. For just a few examples of use of forest products for non-burning uses, it is well known from scientific and medical research that wood burning is a substantial source of PM 2.5 emissions, yet the wood burning industry uses the scientifically debunked theory named carbon neutrality of wood burning to argue that wood burning replacing coal burning in industry, and in a trickle-down argument that wood burning should continue for home heating should continue. Presumably because it is called renewable, wood may be renewable in the sense that a tree can be planted in the place of a cut-down burned tree. But it takes centuries or decades for the newly planted tree to attain the stature of the cut-down burned tree. During those centuries or decades, photosynthesis, which converts CO2 to oxygen, and so sequesters some carbon, will not take place at the same rate as photosynthesis was performed previously, and wood burning emits both CO2 and PM 2.5, and PM 2.5 is not absorbed by trees, so PM 2.5 is not diminished by planting a tree in the place of a cut-down and burned tree. In fact, a living tree closes its pores against the presence of PM 2.5 from nearby wood burning, just as humans hold their breath in the presence of PM 2.5 from nearby wood burning. And when a tree closes its pores, the level of photosynthesis that absorbs CO2 pollution goes down. Wood burning emits 90% PM 2.5 particulate matter of 2.5 micrometer size, the perfect size to infiltrate the human lung, setting off a cascade of human health problems and early deaths. Contrary to many beliefs, wood burning emits 2.8 times the PM 2.5 as the fossil fuel coal burning, and wood burning emits 450 times the PM 2.5 as the fossil fuel natural gas burning. Replacing coal burning with wood burning creates more air pollution in the form of CO2 and PM 2.5 than coal burning. This emission data comes from testing the cleanest burning wood stove in the United Kingdom. The Eco-Design Wood Stove International Convention does not count the emissions from wood burning. The emissions from wood burning are erased from all countries around the world when calculating if each country has met its climate goals. This non-counting or erasure of wood burning emissions data from climate goals does not mean wood burning emissions do not exist. Rosette View Purple Air. PM 2.5 monitors hanging from the eaves of the house of a near neighbor should be used to measure the level of PM 2.5 in the air hyperlocally in the yards of near neighbors of indoor residential wood burners. If PM 2.5 levels exceed World Health Organization standards of 5 micrograms per cubic meter annually, then that evidence of air pollution from wood burning should lead to the shutdown of that indoor residential wood burning appliance, one appliance at a time if necessary.